Welcome to the least exciting week of the Chinese Law Pro League so far. That's right, we're not going to bullshit you. This week doesn't have any big name face-offs and for the most part should feature general stomps or teams wandering around somewhat questionably. The team that plays a best of two every night this week, just to illustrate a point, is Team WE, and for the moment they're tied at the bottom of the standings with Energy Pacemaker and only one win out of 12 games to their name. If you're an aficionado, you'll still want to watch all of these games and get a sense of how teams perform situationally, but for the most part you'll want to be a bit more selective, and that's why we're here.
EDG versus M3 is, surprise, going to most likely go in Edward Gaming's favor. Now, Edward Gaming may have dropped a set to Snake, but they've won every other matchup they've gone through. And EDG is really likely to have these kind of things happen in the regular season historically. In the past, they've gotten 0-2'd by worse teams even. So, I'm not really too concerned with the fact that they've lost when analyzing this upcoming matchup, since they're usually just on the right track. Even if during the regular season they don't really catch up to their playoffs performance, I still don't expect this to be a hard match. Now, Master 3... they're not like dead last or anything like that, but they are sitting in 8th. They have had some struggles, but admittedly they have lost towards some of the better teams. So they've already faced defeats against LGD, against OMG. Also, Starhorn Royal Club is arguable. They lost to them, and Starhorn is doing really well. They've only lost to really good teams. Now, briefly, I'll just go over my highlight matchups for this. So I'm going to put it at Koro versus Looper. I find this interesting just because I think some people used to have a very inflated view of how good Looper was. But after they've seen his performance in the LPL as a kind of a standalone player rather than just, an asset for his team, now people are starting to see what's going on with Looper. And in Koro is much better than he's ever been. He's more flexible, and he does have that carry potential instead of just having that teamfight utility. So it'll be interesting to see just how easy the matchup is for Koro, because I feel like it's going to be a matchup that's going to be relatively easy, and Koro's really come to become like a top carry in the world in terms of top lane. And it's really awesome to see, because he still has all those other assets that make him a good player outside of just, the whole flame-esque thing. So he has a lot going for him. Now the other match is Pawn versus Rookie, not Rookie, Dade. So Dade has seemed a little bit lackluster on and off in Masters 3. You could tell that his effort isn't really in the right places right now. He's been very shaky at best, whereas Pawn is not playing poorly, he's just very unfamiliar with EDG style. Now, when he replaced you was a player that would just primarily focus on farming up, playing passive, and being really strong in team fights. Granted, this is actually something that the team forced him into, not necessarily the only thing you could do. So you could argue that currently the mid lane is a downgrade, but realistically it should be an investment into the future, because Pawn is very good at what he does, which is essentially things that aren't team fighting. So you have Pawn against Rookie. Pawn is essentially just better in this 1v1 matchup against Dade in Dade's current state, so I could definitely see that going in favor of Brain Death, Edward Gaming, as well as just EDG taking the set 2-0.
Normally, I would just tell you to watch Champions Korea, but Najin vs. GE doesn't start for another 2 hours according to the schedule, so you can either pray for massive delays or tune in, and you know what? This is going to be a very special set. Rest assured, it's likely no best of two will be this bad in LPL for the rest of the spring. With that in mind, WE has been making some gains. Spirit has gone more to his natural supportive style, picking Jarvan when it's open and trying to create choke points and teamfight opportunities. STYZ has also been playing to his strengths and choosing champions like Ezreal and Caitlyn more often. This decision could just be enough for this set to be a completely one-sided best of two. Energy Pacemaker, on the other hand, has seemingly gotten even worse as a team since the split began. Perhaps the abrupt introduction of Raphael and Drizzle, removing the core of the team in Captain 57 and Xiao Lola, is to blame, but Energy Pacemaker's strengths have been removed, reducing them to the prime example of how introducing a language barrier can sometimes make things much worse than you can imagine. This likely isn't even the fault of a single player or one team, but rather a lack of foresight in roster formation. Then, of course, with the massive patch change though, this could be everything both these teams need to radically change and let their roster flourish. But more than likely, it's everything we've built it as.
IG versus LGD is a set of similarities. Both teams have had to juggle their roster changes in the first few weeks to get an understanding of what fits the team better. LGD is actually in a better position, while their only worries are between Flame and Acorn. IG, on the other hand, have had to face a larger shift in power by swapping rookie Pokemon for Save and ZZTie, or vice versa. That shift affects mid lane jungle synergy, which has seen in the IG games that they've already played, can be disastrous for Kakao. He needs the clear direction and the faith in his ganks and counter ganks, and he looks noticeably taken aback without Rookie, and so that's why we've more regularly seen that lineup in play. That all being said, they have just as many differences. And it all comes down to their strengths. LGD has powers in their lanes. Their laners can consistently get that strength, or like at the very least be even. But they do have a weaker jungler in Chuen, now known as TBQ. Invictus Gaming they have a strong jungler, of course, in Kakao, but they also have struggling lanes, especially with Pokemon. This won't be a welcoming message for LGD, having both Acorn and Flame in their roster, but maybe, just maybe, he'll prove to be a water type if Flame does face him. That's a bad one. Highlight players for LGD is Acorn. Acorn is in a position to take the win based on his lane matchup alone. If he can overpower Pokemon and just take that advantage in team fights, the rest of LGD will just clean up. And IG will just have superior team fights, as they've always had. For IG, it's on Mr. LPL Kakakle himself, Kakao, to set the tone early. I trust he can out-jungle TBQ. Trouble is getting past that and having the lanes work in his favor, along with hopefully getting map control early, through maybe just early tower pushes to cut LGD's pace. TBQ has showed that he's willing to risk his life to steal a few dragons, so gaining control of that can maybe even net them a kill as well. But I do see this in LGD's favor.
There's something fairly interesting to be noted about Starhorn, in that outside their drops against the top three, LGD, OMG, and EDG, they've actually gone undefeated, which is to suggest that since teams like IG haven't had the same front-loaded schedule, Starhorn will naturally eclipse them in the standings for the coming weeks. Certainly a dark horse on the radar for when Name makes his return to competitive play, and this theme aligns nicely with Vici Gaming. Ramp time. Due to roster issues, either through a new hybrids like Vici or last-minute subs from Starhorn in the ADC position, both these teams have been slow to build, finding mixed success and putting them in the middle of the standings. Recently, Vici have been on the upswing in their victories over King that begin to define them as a terrifying team their imported roster bought. Hatong and Carry were question marks concerning performance, but have started to ease critics with meta champion pools and playmaking synergy alongside Dandy. Where Vici Gaming once looked disjointed with Dandy and Mata working as separate entity while their Chinese teammates struggled to find synergy, they've now refined into a vision-dominant team that is able to create and exploit enemy rotations and open up Vasily to be that true carry. It's reminiscent of Samsung White's skirmish style, but too early to call if it'll be their defining characteristic or if they'll be able to maintain this level of play consistently. On the other side, Starhorn are in their own rebranding as they transition to Insec as the primary shot caller, which is definitely showing growing pains. The aggressive, at times to a fault, jungle carry has now been shown over caution in Starhorn Royal Club's rotation, similar to Insec's top style when Kakao was moved into the KT Bullets. EG's coach Aaron explained the upside best. With Uzi gone, it opens up Starhorn to stylistically experiment and evolve. We've already seen the changes with Cola becoming a frontrunner with Nar success, but the featured matchup will actually be in the jungle between the two Korean giants, Insec and Dandy. Probably the most polar opposite matchup their reputations could create. The last time these two faced was in the World Finals, where Dandy and Mata systematically destroyed Starhorn in their deporting of Insect's jungle to counteract his movements and plays. Insect, the wild aggressor known for his brute force mechanics. Dandy, the intelligent patience known for his striking at the most opportune time. Different teams but the same grudge match. This series will help clarify not only where these two teams stand, but should prove vastly entertaining if these hybrid rosters can conform on their own strategies.
And that's why we're here.
EDG versus M3 is, surprise, going to most likely go in Edward Gaming's favor. Now,
Stomps or teams wandering around somewhat questionably. The team that plays a best of two every night this week, just to illustrate a point, is Team WE, and for the moment they're tied at the bottom of the standings with Energy Pace.
Edward Gaming may have dropped a set to Snake, but they've won every other matchup they've gone through. And EDG is really likely to have these kind of things happen in the regular season historically. In the past, they've gotten 0-2'd by worse teams even.
Maker, and only one win out of 12 games to their name. If you're an aficionado, you'll still want to watch all of these games and get a sense of how teams perform situationally, but for the most part, you'll want to be a bit more selective. Welcome to the least exciting week of the Chinese LoL Pro League so far. That's right, we're not going to bullshit you. This week doesn't have any big name face-offs, and for the most part, should feature general